Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us for another segment on Novell Vibe. In this segment we'll describe and we'll talk about how to manage larger projects using Novell Vibe. Hopefully you've watched the previous segment we did on managing smaller projects where we talked about setting up task folders and tasks and subtasks, and that's the way was the best way to manage smaller projects. But what if you've got a larger implementation of a product or a service or whatever whatever kind of project you're managing within your organization? Putting everything in one task folder can get a little overwhelming because you'll have so many tasks, so many people involved, different departments perhaps. So this is what we're going to look at right now. The big difference is instead of using just one task folder, we're going to set up several task folders. And you'll see that right away at the main page of your project. You can see here we've got different task folders for human resources, for IT infrastructure, and then the new thing we're going to introduce here and talk about is a milestone folder. So not too many people seem to know what to do with a milestone folder, so we'll take a look at that as well. So just to show you what we've done here is we've created a different task folder for every department that's going to be involved. So we're obviously we're talking about a Vibe implementation, so we've got an IT infrastructure to take care of. So similar to our previous example, we've got acquisitions to take care of. We've got to get quotes for the server and order all that stuff, and then we've got to prepare a database server. We're going to prepare our Vibe server with all the tasks and subtasks that go with that. There is one thing I wanted to show you. One of the things I like to do with my tasks, and could be really cool for people working on the software side of things. So in the prepare database server here, I've got a task called create Vibe database. So I just wanted to point out that in your task description, one of the things I like doing is actually putting in the instructions. This is directly from the Novell documentation site. I've copied and pasted the instructions right here on how to create a remote database for Vibe. Not only that, but I've attached to the task the script necessary to create the database, in this case for MySQL. So you can see how practical that is for the engineer who's actually going to be assigned to this task and taking care of this. That not only has he got the task that he needs to work on, he's got all the instructions on how to do that task, and he's actually got the database script required to create that database and get the task done. And I've done that too with other assignments here. So for example, creating the remote leucine indexer. So here are the instructions on how to set that up. And again, we could attach here the indexer file that would be installed. Actually, this would be in this task here, install remote leucine indexer. Here are the instructions, and here's my attachment. So the engineer would simply have to download this to the server and run this program to install the indexer. So everything he needs is right there, instructions and files. Then we've got a human resources task folder where human resources is going to be involved in this Vibe deployment because they're going to review some of the policies for the organization, employee policies, IT policies, sales policies. Then one of the things they're going to do is once it's all reviewed, they're going to copy and paste that into a workspace that'll be set up at the global level within Vibe, so for all employees to have access to these policies. Then the other thing they're going to do is work on a time off request. So, using Novell Vibe's custom forms and workflows, they're going to determine, what are the requirements for the form, for the workflow. Then someone's going to design this and create it, and then we'll test it, and finally we'll approve it. And there could be a lot more tasks, obviously, at every level. And then finally, we're going to take care of training. We're going to train our admins on how to manage the Novell Vibe infrastructure, and then we're going to plan the training for the users because, we don't give things to users without training them on it, right? So we're going to, all these tasks here, we've got different statuses, and some have been started and some have not. We also saw in the previous segment how you can quickly get a graph of what's going on in this folder. So in my IT infrastructure, I can see that I've got 16% of my tasks are medium priority, 62% are high, 20% critical. I can see the status now, how many are completed, in process, needs action. But what if for the project manager might want a higher level view of all these activities, and that's where the milestones folder comes in. So in the milestones folder, we've milestones are the important points along the project, the those important milestones that we need to keep track of. So the first thing we have is a project kickoff that we want to have done by the 22nd of July. So this is just a milestone that we've said we want the team to meet and discuss plan the Vibe implementation. We don't want to have that done by the 22nd of July. But you can see here we've got another milestone, which is our IT infrastructure. We want that done by the 12th of August. And you can see here I've linked that milestone to my task folder for the IT infrastructure. And I can quickly see just by hovering the mouse over here that 4% are completed, 16% in process, and 79% need action. They got to get started on. I can also click right here and be brought right to my IT infrastructure task folder where I can see the details and status of every task. So this is a great way, especially if you've got a really large project, a lot of task folders, a lot of people involved in different departments. The project manager can keep an eye on how things are going here from a very high level. Now, how did we create these milestones? Well, very easily. We're going to create a new milestone that we're going to call training. And what we're going to do is we want the training to be done by, let's say, mid-September. And we want it to be done by end of the day, mid-September. And what we're going to do then is link that task folder to this milestone entry. So we're going to go down to our Vibe large project, and here's our training task folder. We're going to link this here, and we're simply going to say OK. And here you go. So now we have a training milestone, and we have a direct link to that training folder, task folder. And we can quickly see how things are going on the training side of things. All right. Now, I didn't assign anybody here. I forgot to do that while I created my milestone. But as you can see, you can also assign someone to be responsible for that milestone. So in the case of HR policies, I've delegated Annalisa to be responsible for the finalization and completion of that milestone of that task. So she will be charged with making sure that all of these HR policies get reviewed and added and the workflow gets done. Now, you don't need to link, as you can see here, the project kickoff. We don't really need to link it to a task folder. We can simply create a milestone and just to keep, to close a project or see how it went. So for example, we're going to review project at the end of everything. So we want to have that done. If we want the training to be done by the mid-September, let's say by the end of September, we want everything to be done, wrapped up. We just want to do, sort of a review of how everything went. And then at that point, we can probably close the project. So that's your milestones folder. And again, it can be as big or as small as you want it to. It all depends on your needs, your environment. In this case, as you can see, I've put all the task folder at the root of the workspace. You can go crazy. I mean, create a task folder with subfolders that are task folders, arrange it whichever way you want. You can link these milestones to any folder within Vibe. So again, you can even link to task folders in other workspaces. So for, if there are several workspaces related to a project, you can even have one milestone folder that brings all of this together for, all the executives and whoever's taking care of that project at a very high level. And that's how you can use the task management and milestones within Novell Vibe to keep track of larger projects. So I hope that helps. If you have any comments, please leave them on the website, questions, and maybe we can address them in further videos or other articles on the website. Thank you.